Saints and Common Citizens. How did the
Hmm.
show come together?
Well, I sort of had this inspiration to reimagine the saints as we see them in the Catholic Church and some other Christian denominations, where you have the saints with the halo and they're holding something that is symbolic and they are posing in such a way that probably it points you to how they were killed, maybe as martyrs, or some other thing about their life, maybe the work that they did when they were alive. So I was sort of imagining what it would be to be a saint in this time and age. What it would mean is that the digital aspect of our lives as human beings in this time and age would feature in such a portrait if you were to create a portrait of a saint today. And probably saints of today would be doing their work, through digital means, maybe through the internet, using their phones or whatever they have. And so that is how the collection came about. Part one of the collection at least came about through that idea of reimagining what it would be like to be a saint today.
Now, you're from Nigeria. Do you think about religion in your own way? How does religion play a part in this series from your own personal perspective or experience?
Religion is a very part of the Nigerian life. There's a lot of things that speak to that as an irony, but that's a conversation for another day. But religion really is a very big part of Nigerian life. I actually grew up with a mother whose family is very Catholic and a father whose family is very Jehovah's Witness. So I often tell people that I don't know how they got to fall in love and get married because of how the doctrines from these denominations are opposing, but they did, and they continued with their faith, even though not so actively, but they continued with their faith. And so I got to experience Catholicism and experience the other side of Jehovah's Witness, which were or are really opposing. And this sort of made me understand that religion really is a matter of belief, it's a matter of doctrine, it's a matter of how you were brought up and all that. And this has, through my life, given me a sort of flexibility in terms of how I relate with people, in terms of belief and all that, because I know it's individualistic. You really can't hold someone exactly unless they are doing something evil in the society. You really can't hold someone for what they choose to believe in. So religion in Nigeria is a very big thing. We have a lot of Pentecostal churches. We have a common phrase here, which is by the grace of God, which sometimes is used to dismiss not being efficient in what you're doing, used to dismiss a lot of negative things. But it really is, even though we are supposed to be a secular state, but you go to the northern parts of Nigeria, it is deeply Islamic. And that also sort of finds its way into the way government is run over there. So yeah, religion is a very big part of Nigeria.
And you depict a lot of times in your work, especially in this series, saints and common citizens, everyday people with this sacred quality. What draws you to that idea?
I think it also boils down to the idea of belief. We all have something we believe in, even if it is from the religious aspect or from any religious point of view. For example, Saint Tiffany, which is one of the works there, if you look closely, you can see that this individual is someone who believes in online activism and engages in online activism, fighting for zero hunger in the world, fighting for LGBTQ rights, fighting for, some other things that you see that are part of that work. You look at St. Calova, for example. Today we're talking about looks maxing amongst especially the Gen Zs and younger people, and that's something that points to that's an artwork that points to that also, where you maybe step out of the shower and you look at the mirror and your body's looking so good because of the work you've put into it, and you want to show it off, you know. But also that's something you believe in, which is that you have to build your body and so on and so forth. So with each individual in society comes a certain backpack of beliefs that they carry, and this is something that you also find in the works.
Now, as you're describing some of the ways in which these pieces depict everyday life, characters of the modern era, I think about your background and your studies in literature. Do you think about the stories as you're making these pieces? What comes first, the words in the description and the way that you write about the pieces, or the images themselves?
Definitely, but what comes first is the vision for the work, is the story of this person that I'm trying to portray or that I'm trying to show. And that is really what portraiture is about. It's about telling the human story using the human figure, using maybe the human face, if you will. That really is what portraiture is about. Yes, my background is partly in literature, and I grew up reading so much and trying to write stories. But portraiture, like I've said in the past, visual art really became a more urgent way for me to tell stories. So when I paint an individual, a group of individuals, there's a story that they are carrying with them in that very work. And that is what I'd like people to see. I'd like people to look at the elements within the work itself and look at how these elements relate to the individual that is being portrayed in the work. So what comes first really is the vision, and with that vision comes the story of the person as I'm making it. When I'm working, you'll likely hear me playing music and singing along. That speaks to what is going on in my mind also, which is that there's a storytelling that is going on while I am working, you know, within myself. And at the end of the day, the work becomes what it wants to be.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about your process. You're listening to music, you're thinking about the character, the story you want to tell. You make your work in Microsoft Word. What is
Mm.
something Microsoft Word can do that something like Photoshop can't?
Hmm. What is so that's an interesting question. I haven't explored Photoshop. I really haven't explored Photoshop, so I don't know the nitty-gritties when it comes to Photoshop. But I can tell you that creating art in Microsoft Word is a way of challenging yourself. You are doing something that, yes, there are rules to what you are doing, but you can think beyond those rules and tend to break the rules, if you will, when you are creating in Word. It's limited what you can do, but within that limitation is the beauty of what you are creating. In Photoshop, as I understand, there's a lot of things you can do, but in Word, you have to be very deliberate in what you are doing. Sometimes the work doesn't come out perfect, right, at the end of the day, because obviously that's not what Word is made for, which is making art. But what you get to take out of that process is, you know, the satisfaction of the challenge and the fact that you are able to tell the story you want to tell visually using still within the limitations of Word. I think that people who use Photoshop or some other programs have a lot of liberty when it comes to what they can do.
This notion came up about, Microsoft Word is something that is so accessible to so many people, and yet you're so unique in the way that you express yourself using Microsoft Word. And I think there's an interesting analogy to AI today. People have fears about this technology, about um, it supplementing creative work. There's hope, I think, out there, and you are an example of how no matter what the the technology, no matter what the tool set is, no matter how widely accessible it is, you can still find a way to express yourself within it.
Yeah, you can still find a way to express yourself within it. When I started making arts in Word, I didn't know that it was not meant exactly for this. But if it wasn't meant exactly for this, why do you have those tools there that I can use to create something visual, you know? And so it's about making use of what you have to really achieve the vision that you want. Those of us in this part of the world, which is Africa, we don't have access to a lot of high technology like you'd see in the West and all that. What creative people do here is to make do with what they have to actually do what they want to do. And when I started out using Word to create art, I just started let me just see if I can create some simple logos that I used to see around me. And from there, I was like, oh, maybe I can create art just as these Italian masters were doing in the books that I've read, in the various books I've seen. There are so many beautiful illustrations, beautiful artworks that I've seen. Maybe I can try doing this. And I just kept trying and trying. Even before we had a computer at home, we had a laptop at home, I would go to the cyber cafe and use Microsoft Word to try and create something and save in my mailbox. So it's not really about the technology or the limitations or the accessibility. It's about what you have, what you can access at the moment, and what you can do with it. So many of these AIs, you have to make payment to get a certain level of things. But beyond that, you go on Instagram, for example, you see a lot of Africans who are creating beautiful videos, beautiful things using AI, and they're just making use of what they have without having to get the high AI tech, if you will.
I'm thinking as you're describing your process, some of the subjects in the work. I know you also spent some time in the Nigerian civil service. I wonder, does it feel at all radical what you're doing? It feels very radical. This
It
this
does.
process that you have of making this work on top of the subjects and some of the narratives that you're telling in the work. Are you aware of this?
It's a sharp contrast, and now that you say it, I'm beginning to see it because I was an academic librarian for 4 years, and when I was a student, it wasn't what I envisioned academic librarianship in Nigeria should be. And it really isn't what it should be. The kind of civil service that we have here, it's sort of now watered down, is inefficient, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And really, I was disappointed with the system when I joined the system as an academic. It wasn't what I expected. But then coming to the process of creating art in Microsoft Word, it seemed radical, like you said, it seemed different, you know, in the sense that it's about creating efficiency, it's about pushing the envelope, it's about pushing the limitations and trying to make things work the way they should work, the way you want them to work, because there's a way things should work if you are trying to make art, and it's trying to do that. It's a sharp contrast, and I see that now.
You recently took part in the Rockefeller Bellagio residency in
Mm,
Lake Como. This consisted of Nobel laureates, authors, policymakers, and yourself.
yeah.
Um, I'm so curious to hear about this experience and congratulations. What was it like?
Thank you. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. The residency is curated in such a way that you come in and everyone has an equal platform, to do the work that they need to do. There are people who are working in agriculture. There are people who are working in climate and environment. There are people who are working in public policy. There are people who are working in literature. There are people who are working in radio. There are so many people. And what it does is that it opens your eyes to these other parts of careers or practices that others around you are doing, and you are able to give feedback to what people are doing based on your own experience and based on the field you are coming from. and they are also give feedback to you on the work you're doing based on their own experience and from the field they are coming from. It sort of creates an environment where collaboration just happens naturally, where even friendship begins to, blossom. And it was really exciting being there in February with it's been 1 year now of 2025 with these amazing people who have become really, really great friends.
Is there one conversation, one relationship, one moment that stands out to you from that experience?
Yes, I was going to say that they are not just great friends, but they are supporters of my work. Seeing my work, they loved it so much, and I I continued a series which I had started before there called Forgotten Relics. And so the part two I worked on during the residency, and I created these four artworks that somehow also pay tribute to the residency itself. And just after the residency, some of these people actually bought my work, and have my work hanging in their homes. It's really touching to see that sort of commitment to supporting someone you met at a residency.
I want to quickly touch on the Toledo Museum residency. I'm fascinated by this experience primarily because it was your first time working in a physical medium. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You were working at stained glass, which I absolutely love and feels so perfect for your work. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Oh, Toledo was an amazing experience also. Thanks to Adam Levine, the CEO and director of the museum, and the other members of staff were really incredible. I came into Toledo as someone who's coming into the US for the first time, and I felt really at home. Not just feeling at home, but the museum sort of provided me with the tools and the time to actually think beyond what I've been doing before to sort of push my practice. And I got there, and with the help of the staff at the stained glass section of the museum, I was able to translate one of my works into stained glass, which is now in the museum collection also. It sort of opened my eyes to the possibility of the physical because I've been working and working in the digital. And leaving Toledo, I started thinking more about physical manifestations of my practice because the work can be digital, but it doesn't mean that there can't be a physical manifestation of the work. There are collectors who care about the physical, there are collectors who care about the digital, maybe those who care about both. But at the end of the day, I believe that an artist has that you owe yourself that responsibility to not just be at a place doing the same thing over and over. Again, you have to sort of push yourself, even if it means sort of shifting from the medium that you are comfortable with. And that is what the residency at the Toledo Museum of Art gave me.
Bringing things full circle back to Saints and Common Citizens, how does this work feel different from what you were making before? And in what ways is it similar?
It feels different in that I started out making this work because I wanted to create a collection. When you come to the NFT space today, many artists are putting out stuff and minting out stuff, but there are a few who are creating a proper collection where there is coherence in the different artworks and they are all tied together to tell one big story. That is what I wanted to do here, as opposed to just create and mint, and the works would be disjointed. I wanted to bring them together to tell one story. That is how it's different. But how it is similar, it is still me creating in Microsoft Word. It is still me pushing Microsoft Word. But this time, really, I'm also, like I do in all my works, looking at the society, critiquing the society, presenting what the society is, because I feel that there's a responsibility deeply as an artist that I have to present this society as it is, so that those who will see it 100 years from now would know exactly how things were, but also taking inspiration from the artists that have come before.
What do you hope that people notice What do you hope that they take away from this collection, Saints and Common Citizens?
I hope that they see themselves in the works. I hope that they see people they know in the works. I hope that they see the society as we have it today in that collection, and I hope that they bring their own experience also to the collection. That is what I keep saying, is that I want people to bring their experience, no matter how different it looks or it feels from what the work is saying. Bring your own experience to the work and sort of see the work from your own experience. I hope this is what they get to do, and I hope that it's not a matter of loving the work. I hope that the work actually speaks to them beyond the aesthetics.
What are you paying attention to now that you weren't before?
Hmm. I'm paying attention to other mediums that are not exactly digital. And this is going back to what I said before. I'm thinking more about sculpture. I'm thinking more about all things physical. Just how can I manifest the digital in the physical. That is what I've been thinking about lately. I've had a few ideas, I've had a few experiments. You are aware of me trying to translate across the face into a 3D printed sculpture. But beyond that, there are other things that I'm thinking about. It doesn't mean that I am leaving digital, but I'm trying to challenge myself to even do more in my practice.
You're still young, you have a lifetime of work ahead of you. But so far, with everything that you've explored in your career, what does this show, Saints and Common Citizens, represent for you right now?
I think it represents the beginning of what I hope will be a bigger presence in North America for my work. I've been working for years, beyond having spent 8 years in the NFT space now. I've been creating art even before the blockchain. And so you see more of my work in Europe. But I want to sort of break into North America, break into Asia, just sort of spread my work out there. And the show, I hope, will be the beginning of, a bigger presence in North America for my work.
Osinachi, you're one of a kind. You're a huge inspiration. I'm so grateful for your time, and I'm such a huge fan. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you, Jonathan. And because of this, I think I have a makeshift studio right now. Thank you.